going to look at today. I'm going to do a very brief overview about to highlight the problems facing veterans. There are a massive amount of problems facing veterans. I can't do that justice today, so it will be a brief introduction. We'll look at some of the research that's been around both in America and in the UK. I'll then take you through the actual research that we did, some of the findings and some of the consequences to those findings. And again, it will be focused around TR. Again, we couldn't avoid that one. So the first slide, I was going to do a pub quiz, but that's already happening later on in the day, about who actually is a veteran, because there's a lot of misnomers out there, there's a lot of disagreement. Perhaps when I first started in this topic, that might have been the person that I imagined. However, there's also that as well. What we're faced with is two very distant images, and we need to try and look at this in terms of putting those two images together. The problem being that the veterans themselves don't actually understand or realise that they are veterans, so we're starting with a barrier, and it's quite a big barrier, it's a problem. What we did do, what the Durham Tees Valley Trust have done, is follow the British Legion's definition. We adopt this because it is useful. We recognise that it is useful in terms of accessing needs, but we have to balance that with the problems that it does actually create as well. So I think we mentioned the problems facing veterans. The list up there. A couple of things I'd like to sort of pull out from that list. There's one around knowledge and support. What you'll find with the veteran is that potentially they've been in the military, they've had everything done for them since the age 17, 18 years old. Ask them to pay a bill, ask them where to find a GP. Generally you'll face a struggle unless they've got quite strong social ties, family ties that can help them. There's one up there about self-medication. Might presume that that's alcohol, it's actually not. Self-medication isn't just about alcohol. Self-medication is around prescribed medication. You will find that you go to your doctor, you might get 28-day supply of medication. A veteran, or sorry, somebody that's still in the military, will go to the doctor. They will be given 6 months a year supply and told to get on with it. So it can create difficulties in terms of addiction later down the line. Moving on from that, we've got the national database. This has proved to be a problem for anybody looking at the area of researching veterans. We don't have a list. I couldn't give you a list now of all the veterans in the country, nobody else could. So we start from quite a negative perspective in terms of trying to build this list. We all need to do that together. So, research. America's been really good and proactive in looking at the term, looking at veterans. And what they've managed to do is evolve quite quickly and look at their criminal justice system. What they have done is create specialist courts. It's quite an interesting area, and it does fit in with things that we've done in terms of domestic violence and drugs courts. So you'll see that we have specialisms. In America, they've done this with veterans. So all the staff are trained, the judiciary are trained, everybody's aware of the complex nature of veterans, and it works really well. The research that's coming around at the moment has sort of focused very much from a health perspective, but it does have interesting knock-on effects for us, because they are now looking at risk and they are focusing very much on these variables that appear to work together, and there's a correlation between these variables and future violence. In the UK, we're slightly behind, I guess, in some respects on this. What we do have is a platform upon which other research is being built, and that's the DASA. DASA undertook this research. They then did a second one, so there's an A and there's a B. And they provided us with a snapshot, which was very much numbers. This is how many we think we have. This is what we think the sentences are. It was very narrow focus in that respect. There were some issues in terms of the categories used, and that's something that I'll mention later down the line. That there was an other category, which pretty much came and just came for lots of offences to go into. So the figures that we see at the bottom here, the sexual offending one seems to have stayed quite level, but the violence against the person, like I said, they actually missed out quite a lot of violent offences, which is something that we hope that this study actually rectifies. The other areas of research has very much been around experiences and very much prison based. So Coward League have done quite a lot of stuff. There's quite a lot of documents and brochures out there that we can use to build upon, but it's not always helpful information to focus just in one area in terms of prison. What's interesting is the McManus work that was released in 2013 follows the work of Elbridgen that I mentioned about America, but looking at these variables. So we now have research based in the UK that also shows similar things in terms of the risks. And it does focus on post-traumatic stress disorder, which I will talk about in the future. So looking actually at the research that we undertook, like I said, there were some problems in getting the sample and getting the data because of TR, also because we had DIAS imposed upon us and crammed removed, so we actually lost so much data. But we managed to get 141 identified veterans and looked at their Oasis and DIAS records. What we then did was try and incorporate some interviews into the work we did. So we interviewed 51 veterans, and they were interviewed primarily in the community, but there were a handful that we looked at in custody as well. The last bit is something that's quite new, I think, in terms of research, and that was incorporating crime bureau records. So this is somebody's record whilst they're in the military. It's not something that we normally have access to. We can access it, but it's not something that's generally been accessed and utilised in probation. So this is the profile that we found, and this is, like I said, just based in Durham Tees Valley. We have nothing to suggest that we have an unusual group of offenders in our area. So when you look at this, you can see that the majority of veterans are actually falling within the medium risk of harm category. So quite a few in the high, and obviously a couple are very high. And you can see at the bottom there's a reference to the MAPA levels. What's interesting in terms of the future, in terms of TR, obviously, is that veterans are going to be falling very much within the CRC. So that's something that we need to take forward. Looking at the Oasis profile, what we can see here is quite a complex group of people. There's a lot of needs going on. And when we looked at that list earlier on, we could see there's quite a few needs in terms of self-medication, the guilt, all the different things going on. It does transpose into the Oasis documents that we create. There is a sort of word of caution, I guess, in this, that I think we do need to develop the way we use Oasis, if that's what we're going to have, for the veteran cohort. The reason being that in emotional well-being, you would potentially have expected that to be a little bit higher in terms of the research that's going around post-traumatic stress and mental health problems, and also how we actually evidence and record somebody's military history in that document, maybe in the ET section. And that is referenced within the paper that I've created. We do talk a lot about the Oasis document. There are some recommendations around that. Excuse me. We then move on to the offending profile. I'll just explain, we've got two categories in each, two colours. The first category is the legal definition. When I talked about the DASA, this is sort of the categories that they used. What I tried to do is then actually read 141 Oasis documents. It was a lengthy task, but we got through it, but actually we found that POA, you'll see that we had 3 actually in the first sift. When we went through it again, we were able to move those offences into the violence category, because a lot of those were phrased, a lot of them were actually quite violent offences. I wanted this to be real research in terms of actual violence that's been committed, not just looking at a legal definition. Similarly, when you looked at the criminal damage category, the majority of those were domestic abuse incidents and are actually quite significant with use of weapons, but they've been placed into the criminal damage when they went to court. So it was important for me to separate those two out. What you can clearly see is we've got a lot of violence and we've got quite a lot of sexual offending amongst this category. And moving on to the sexual offending, this was something that was quite a surprise that came up from the research. We knew that we had around 25%, and that wasn't unusual in terms of the research from the Howard League, from DASA. We knew that was probably about right. When it was broken down, however, the profile was very much different to what I expected anyway. As you can see, we had 33 sexual offences, majority of which the victims were children. The research looks at this and it develops themes around masculinity, about the impact of social bonds, about isolation, I can't, it's not for me to sort of say the people's sexual offending because of, but the paper does highlight some things and recommends obviously quite a lot of future research in terms of the sexual offences that are going on in this cohort. Like I said, it was quite shock. The service place information, just to come back to that and give you some more detail. Some of you may not have accessed this information before, so just to get a feel of what that's about. It comes in a visor format, generally, however, it doesn't always. The reason being that the military have a system called REDCap, and REDCap has never been set up to deliver information to other agencies, it's simply a recording system. However, hopefully that will change this year. There is a new system coming on board which should be able to provide all of us and future researchers with much more detailed information about the behaviours and offences that are being committed by veterans or by the military. The information that came back from this cohort was numerous people had been AWOL. Perhaps not, that's not necessarily a surprise, but a number of times somebody had been AWOL. We saw a high level of suicide attempts amongst the cohort, and that this is information that we wouldn't normally have access to unless the person in front of us told us, actually yes, I tried to kill myself when I was in the army. This is new to us, so it's something that I would definitely recommend, and it's a recommendation that we access information. Similarly, sexual assault, there was things around sexual assault behaviours that there was no conviction. How would probation include that into our assessments if we never accessed service police information? So it is very valuable to the work that we do. Looking at the length of service, this wasn't unusual, this was perhaps expected. A lot of the stuff out there saying that people that offend, that are veterans, tend to be from the lower ranks, tend to be lower educated, and they tend to be from the army, and they tend to have only served quite a short space of time. The reason that the short space of time is relevant is because the army and the military don't offer resettlement packages in the way they do to the longer serving people. The less you serve, the less you get, basically. It is improving, but there's still lots of work for the military to do. So there is an impact. This was another surprise, going back to the sexual offender. We anticipated high levels of violent offending. There is a difference there you can see between the two groups. What we didn't expect was sexual offending. There's a massive difference between the under 4 years and the over 4 years. The paper that I wrote does, like I said, touch on sexual offending. I've done as much as I can with that, but it is now for somebody else to take that research up and look at this in a lot more detail. We do need to look at the victims of sexual offences, and we do need to look at the length of service. Yeah. So that's a quick overview of some of the findings. Now we're looking at the themes of the impact in terms of future work. You can read Paul's quote, one of the chaps that we interviewed. Okay. Adjustment is something that we don't always think of. What's out there in the media is PTSD. It's very much everything's PTSD, and actually post-traumatic stress is the least common mental health problem facing veterans. It's the adjustment disorders that are the most prevalent, and we reflected that in our research. So we found that 70% of the cohort interviews, that's 70% of the 51 believe that they suffered with adjustment, and half of those had the service terminated. That was something that came up. We didn't expect to sort of go necessarily down that route, but what we've realised is that the adjustment seems to be being affected by the reason that somebody left the forces, and that those had their services terminated or had to leave because of health reasons, showed a very high level of dissatisfaction, and it affected their adjustment later on. The second thing that comes out from the research is that of identity, and this is one that is something that we haven't necessarily taken on board. The adjustment issues we tend to do quite well. We refer to housing, we can refer to mental health, that's quite commonplace information. The identity is something that we don't normally address. That I think is quite a powerful statement from that guy. What we found is, in terms of identity, is that 59% of those interviewed didn't feel part of the civilian community. If you don't feel part of the civilian community, we've heard previously about community ties and bonds, do you move somebody on if you don't have a connection with the civilian life? The second bit there, I think 47% didn't feel part of the military community. That's an interesting concept because you could presume that actually, oh, that's quite a worry, but actually a lot of people choose to move away from the military community. That's a choice. What we have done and what has happened is that we have produced veteran working, and one of the key points from this paper is that's not necessarily the best thing every single time. What we need to be doing is looking at identity first and then deciding where we send somebody, what's best for them, what's the best intervention. The last bit there, which was equally more of a worry really, is that we had 15 people that didn't feel part of any community. So the disassociation, the disconnection that these people were feeling was quite extreme, and we need to act and assess this bit first before we move on and look at the actual offending that they're there for. So some of the conclusions from the research. What I said about OASIS, OASIS isn't necessarily the best tool that we have for assessing veterans. It gives a good overall picture, but perhaps we need to look at something a little bit different. We've got an opportunity to consider other options here. And in the way that we have SARA for domestic abuse, there is potential to develop something around a risk predictor for veterans. Like I said, Ella did in America, and we have McManus now in the UK. Maybe we need to take that on board and move forward with that. We need to work in partnerships with other agencies. Like I said, a lot of this cohort are going to fall very much within the CRCs, but we need to do that in a targeted way, looking at the interventions, but going back to the identity. No point putting an intervention in if we don't look at the identity issues first. So we need to promote this multidisciplinary base, and we need to very much promote this positive civilian identity. The veteran dynamic is a complicated one. The whole topic of veterans is very emotive. The veteran working works really well with some people, and in others it actually creates this barrier where they won't engage. So we need to just step back and have to think about why we do what we do and how we intervene. Like I said, the paper focuses a little bit on desistance, not persistence, as it says there, and this stepping back that I'm asking everybody to do and to sort of engage with the subject slightly differently, is to think how you move people on. Like I said, there's a big group of people that don't have a connection with society, they don't have social bonds, they don't have self-identity. We need to reinstate that identity and help them move before we then look at the desistance side, I suppose. Disconnection from society is key, and this actually transposes across a lot of the areas of work we do. I know Sue, the director, we've had numerous conversations since we did this research, looking at how this impacts in other areas such as lifers and people in the group premises. We will readily say to somebody, you can't live there because of very valid reasons. We pick them up and put them somewhere else. We need to think a little bit more about identity, supporting people that perhaps don't have a secure self-identity or competing ones. Because with the veteran cohort, you quite often have a civilian identity and military identity. Then you have all your other identities in terms of father, son, husband, worker, whatever those identities are. So a lot of things for someone to be having in their mind. We need to help people, particularly veteran cohort, we need to help them rationalise those. There are programmes out there. We have an excellent programme in our health trust that looks specifically at adjustment, that looks specifically at identity. And I know they're very keen in sort of looking at some of the conclusions made in this report. I've got questions up there, but I know that we are having questions at the end. So that was a whistle-stop tour